said that Brian Dugan will be going before your inauguration to Canada?
We haven't determined when, whether it would be before the inauguration or after, but our partnership with our Canadian neighbors is incredibly important. They're one of our biggest trading partners. As you know, we're going to be buying more and more energy from them, and we have a real interest in linking up with them on rail. So he's generously offered to come with us.
On the energy question, is this to open talks about expanding purchases with Hydro-Quebec?
Well, we already have one purchase that's been announced. You know, I think that we have to remember that our relationship with our Canadian partners is incredibly important. Let's acknowledge that we haven't always been the best partner. We were suing each other just 8 or 10 years ago over ice storms. I didn't think at the time that was a very prudent thing to do. But we have to keep that relationship really strong. And of course, they don't know the governor-elect. They have a good relationship with current lieutenant governor, and he's offered to help.
But is a new energy deal part of that agenda?
Not necessarily. Really, the agenda is simply to go up and develop relationships with our most important trading partner.
So you'd be meeting with the Prime Minister, or?
Well, we haven't gotten that far, but we would be delighted to do so.
You going to the White House this week?
Yes, we're down in Washington on Wednesday and Thursday, and looking forward to that visit. We're going to meet, obviously, with the President, with many members of the Cabinet, and talk about all kinds of issues, from healthcare to transportation to education to cleaning up the lake.
Is this just you, a private meeting, or?
No, I think there will be the other governor,
Other
the other
baby
governors
governors.
elect, the other baby governors will be joining us.
Can you talk about your comments about the new lake plan a little bit?
Sure.
Are you not satisfied with the new plan, or haven't you looked at it yet?
This is what I know. We spent a lot of money on the lake. It's one of our most important natural resources, arguably our most important. And while we spent over $100 million, we still have a lake that in many areas smells so bad in summertime that people don't want to go to their lake houses or can't swim, and certainly wouldn't want to consider going fishing. We're losing the battle, not gaining the battle, cleaning up the lake. So what do? Well, you look at what we're doing, see whether we're doing it well. My feeling is that we need better measurable outcomes. If we're going to spend money, let's make sure that we understand why we're spending it, and then we measure whether spending that money is making progress, and if it's not, we stop spending the money. Second part is, we have a number of federal programs to give us incentives to help clean up the lake for both our farmers and for our municipalities from water runoff. And many of those federal programs depend upon a match from people who want to participate, like our hardworking dairy farmers, but who are facing bankruptcy right now. So I've said that I need 3 waivers from Washington. One of them is the lake. And I would like to see the federal government look at all of the potential programs that Vermont could tap into to help clean up the lake, and give us one single program that allows us to utilize all of those resources that the federal government would expend, excusing us from a match that farmers just can't afford right now. You know, the ag community is really as committed to cleaning up the lake as everybody else, but I think sometimes the federal programs don't match up with the ability for struggling farmers to pay the match.
Are the other baby governors looking for healthcare waivers as well, do you think?
You know, I had an interesting conversation with some of the new governors, and you know, Rick Scott's a good example from Florida. Now, you wouldn't necessarily think that Peter Shumlin and the governor-elect from Florida, Rick Scott, were going to agree on much. But sitting around the table, we started talking about health care. And I said I wanted a waiver. And they said, why? And I said, because I want to pass a single-payer health care plan. And they said, you what? And they said, but we're with you on the waiver. We want a waiver. We want it for different reasons. And I said, listen, I'll work with you on waivers. You have your reasons to try and figure out what works for Florida. We have our reasons to try to figure out what works for Vermont. Let's work together on the waivers. And I had a number of Republican governors-elects who were interested in working together on that. I've talked with Congressman Welch, and he's willing to help us try to coordinate some of that effort at the congressional level. I know that Senator Sanders and Senator Lake are committed to it. We'll be talking about that this week. But I continue to say the waivers are not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is designing a system that works, that contains cost, because we cannot continue to spend $1 million more tomorrow than we spent today on healthcare, that delivers affordable quality healthcare to all Vermonters, that gets it off businesses' backs so we can grow jobs, and that uses technology to reduce cost. The challenge is designing the system. I really firmly believe that we can get the waivers if we can come up with a system.
You were talking a few moments ago about energy from Canada. I'm wondering, do you think we should be expanding natural gas in Vermont? Should there be growth, geographic growth in that system?
You know, I think one of the things that we should be looking at is more potential for natural gas, particularly on the western side of the state. As we look at job growth in Vermont, we know that the areas that have natural gas have done particularly well lately. And what are they? They are Franklin and Chittenden counties primarily. The other areas of the state that don't have natural gas, I would say, are job deprived. Look at Rutland, look at Bennington. So we all understand the challenges there. It costs a lot of money to run a gas pipeline. But I would predict that oil at $70 a barrel is a temporary phenomenon, and that natural gas prices, because of the new technology and the drilling capabilities, you're likely to see an increasing spread between the affordability of natural gas and the high cost of oil. And that would mean that anywhere that we can affordably get natural gas in Vermont is good for jobs, good for the future. It also, as you know, of the fossil fuels, has the least negative impact on the necessity to put an end to climate change.
There was talk about 15 years ago of natural gas pipeline linking power plants in Bennington and Rutland. We didn't end up doing that. Did we miss the boat?
Well,
Was that a mistake to not do that at the time?
I don't know if we missed the boat. I mean, I think that you have to look at what's before you at the time. I just think there's no question that natural gas is the best of the fossil fuels in terms of climate impact. I think it's going to be the cheapest of the fossil fuels, and I think that the more places that we can expand it affordably, the better off the state's going to be.
You know, Dave brings up a good point, the Champlain pipeline from years ago, they all faced it really environmental opposition, not the financial opposition. Is this sort of a, you know, given your position politically, would that give you more gravitas in that?
Well, I just want to point out that I was actually one of the, in full disclosure, one of the volunteers that worked on the ground pretty hard to stop the Champlain pipeline. And my reasons for that were that they were doing it all of the wrong ways. They were going on people's land without permission. They had a financial infrastructure that made Entergy's spin-off look like a good idea, and they weren't ready for prime time. So what I would prefer to do is partner with companies that we know we can trust, like Vermont Gas, that we know have Vermonters' interests at heart, to talk about the possibilities for expansion instead of trying to bring in someone that we don't know and that we don't necessarily have financial confidence in.
Well, the pipeline to Rutland would be a much easier hop than having to cut across the state like the Champlain.
Sure, and let's not get too carried away. I think we're going to have to do this in stages. There's not going to be a pipeline driven across the state of Vermont all of a sudden. And let's look at where we are. Recently, Vermont Gas has expanded to a number of communities right around Chittenden County that they've reached out to. Jericho is one of them. They've picked up 450 customers there. I think there's potential for more. The obvious next question would be, what would it cost to run down through Brandon and run down to Middlebury, Virgins to Middlebury? You know, what would that pick up? So let's talk about it in stages. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to the Secretary and Deputy Secretary. Appreciate your coming on our team, and away we go. Thanks.